On to page 3, understanding your competition. Other organizations that are doing something similar, competing for the same dollars, resources, volunteers, and time. How do you all differentiate yourself and create a niche? What is your value proposition? Does anybody know what that term stands for, value proposition? Business people? No? It's what sets you apart from your competitors. So why would somebody, as we say in the business industry, turn left versus right if they have the same option? Let's say store A and store B on opposite sides of the road. What's going to make your potential volunteer, donor, or sponsor turn left to come to your church or to get involved with your program versus turning right to go to your competitor? So what is it that sets you apart? So you need to think about that. So what I'd like for you guys to do right now is think about what it is that sets you apart for those who are competing for the same things as you are, whether it's funding or volunteers or sponsors or donors, and who are your competitors? Because there are always competitors, and you may not understand the term. It's not another program that does exactly what you do. It's possibly even in the same building on the same premises that you're both going for the same money. So try to identify what those competition points are for you. Go ahead and take a minute to do that if you haven't already.
Megan, for clarification, our primary objective this morning is to, I would think, is to not compete with St. Mary's to get people. We have a population of Episcopalians in Martin County. I'm not sure what that number is, but you have a number of Episcopalians already attending church on a regular basis. You have a bunch of others that are out there that we see at Easter and Christmas. Or you have a bunch of people that may not be identified at all with the church, and that's a target for us. Mm-hmm. You have other people that are going to Grace Church or the Catholic Church, and I still don't understand what keeps that Catholic society going, but it's, when you look at change occurring in the world today, the Catholics are bucking that. The trend not toward religion, but away from religion, whether it be political or kids' interest or whatever it may be. So when we're talking about competing, I guess I'm having a little problem focusing on what that market really looks like.
Well, perhaps
for us,
Carol can help you, because what it tends to be is people who are going after the same dollars that you are. If there are other programs that mimic or mirror yours within the local community, also perhaps other programs within the parish that are perhaps detracting. If somebody's got $20 to give, are they going to give it to you, or are they going to give it to another program? Are they going to split it $10 down the middle? What are those factors that inhibit your ability to move forward in your efforts?
Yeah, I'm having trouble with putting a face on that target.
Okay, well that's okay. This is a work through situation, so I don't know if you have anything to add to that. Maybe you understand a little bit better.
The same problem in the sense that you're talking about targeting dollars. That's not necessarily...
It's not just targeting dollars. It's about volunteers, it's about sponsors, it's about people who can support your program in a number of ways. Yes?
Let me say something to see if I can clarify a bit. What Megan is talking about is identify your competitor as to the person that is after the same thing that you're after. Like, for example, I'm looking for money for this project, because this project, I'm doing it for the place where I come from, for my people. And the diocese has a task force they set in place because they adopted Haiti as a companion diocese. So because they've done that, they have, that task force is collecting money from the diocese for all the money they sent to Haiti. So I consider the Southeast Florida Haiti project as my competitor. Because when I'm asking money, I'm going to ask money all over all the churches. But because there is something that already set in place to do that for the bigger church in Haiti, I see them as my competitor. See?
Good
So
point.
now what she is as the value added, the point that makes my thing unique is when all the churches give money to the diocese, you give it in good faith that the money is going to do something. It's going to be doing something, but you will never know what it is. But what I am doing, you will know what it is. My house will be there. Whenever you want to go, I'll take you there. So that's set the value of what I'm doing. I think this is what you're talking about, right?
It is, and the other thing is, it's not just about money. Sometimes money is not the factor. It's lack of resources, it's lack of staff, lack of volunteers. So are there other things that are inhibiting your ability to grow your volunteer base? Because there's another program perhaps that's drawing those people to them instead of to you. And if you can't get to that today, it's okay. It's not imperative, but we'll just talk through it, and maybe we can have a longer conversation about it after. Yes, Donna.
I think within the question is the answer, because the reality of our particular community is that we're small and sort of self-contained, so that when we talk about competition, and I really don't like that word, but really we're talking about communities that are each striving to live out their gospel lives with and we're kind of approaching the same people. So the cathedral needs money and approaches the parishes, the Episcopal charities. You know, we are a small community. So, and our challenge is to go outside of ourselves and what makes us different, so that people will support our Episcopal community services. And I think it's a point to reflect upon, because I'm not sure that there is a quick answer to it.
Right.
And one of the other things I think that some people are talking more about is really how do we grow our church population outside of, it's about church versus church as opposed to program versus program, which is a little bit different. And we here today are really hoping that with the development of good programs that people will support them, and maybe that will help with the growth of the churches as well.
Agreed. Anybody want to add anything else to that? Okay, so let's figure out what sets you apart. Write 3 things that set you apart from other programs and your closest competitor. So again, a program that perhaps attracts to the same people, goes for the same funding that you're going after, similar, or the same volunteer pool that you perhaps have access to. Think about ways that you can outperform these other programs. Be sure to focus on what you do well. So here's where you're creating your value proposition. What sets you apart? What makes you different? If you're struggling with this, it may behoove you after today to look into what other programs exist in the community that you live in, and start to do an apples to oranges or an apples to apples comparison to see what they do, who they are, who they serve, and how that aligns with what you do or doesn't align with what you do, and that may help you to come to an answer as far as what sets you apart. And then how do you best communicate this in that 60-second or 1-sentence comment that we were talking about before? Something that captivates people and makes them want to know more. Again, you want them to be compelled by what you're doing, who you're serving. Write out some ideas. It's the quality that you've chosen above, something that your audience cares about. It's not an advantage if it's irrelevant or uninteresting to the people that you want to reach. So how are you telling people? Like I was using as an example in the last workshop, I used to work for a nonprofit called Horses and the Handicapped. And people would say, well, gosh, what do you guys do? And I'd say, we change lives with horses. Wow. How do you do that? So, you know, what you want is to intrigue them and then have them start asking questions. Well, how do horses change lives? Well, people with disabilities actually benefit from a variety of movement from horses. And it's not just people with physical disabilities, but it's cognitive, emotional, mental. And horses can really help people, as it's been scientifically proven, just like swimming with dolphins and dogs and all those sorts of things. Animals and humans have a connection that we don't have with each other. And horses actually mimic the walk of humans. They have a pelvis just as we do, and it moves the same way like we do. So if you are physically incapacitated, whether you have cerebral palsy or you had a stroke or something like that, it actually moves you in a way that your body would move if you could walk yourself, so it builds that core strength. And if you're leaning over like this, it actually gives you the ability to eventually sit up. So there are a lot of interesting ways and very beneficial ways that horses provide therapy for humans, small to old, large, small, young, whatever. But again, if you have that one sentence that says this is what we do, it doesn't have to be as simplified as we help change lives of horses, but something similar. You want to open the door. You don't want to throw it all at them at once. You want them to go, wow, that's really interesting. Tell me more. So take a minute and see if you can come up with that sentence or something close to it at the bottom of this page about what it is exactly that you do and how it helps the people that you serve.
Megan, there's one example that we've spoken about, I think. We have a program partner we support, the St. Lawrence Chapel. And so it's a homeless services program that offers feeding, a drop-in center in Pompano, showering, mail collection, this type of thing. Next door is a shelter run by the county. And what sets us apart is that the people that are served next door are in a program of recovery of some type or some more definitive along their path towards maybe becoming more mainstream. The people St. Lawrence Chapel serves are truly the least of these within our, so it's a different community and in much greater need, and
right.
They're served for who they are, where they are. So that kind of, I think that maybe is what you're talking, that kind
Yes.
of distinction.
Yep, definitely. It doesn't have to be something major, it could be something small. You know, it could be something as significant as the level of transparency in which you're willing to share, which you should all the time, the amount of money that you raise and how much of it actually goes towards the program and not administrative costs. So maybe what your value proposition is that 85 cents of every dollar that you receive actually goes into the program. I remember reading a statistic through a workshop that I went through on fundraising that it was a sheriff's department, a sheriff's organization, and I think only 9 cents of every dollar they raised actually went into the program. The rest of it supported administrative costs and people on the phone calling and asking you for money. So those types of things are hugely important, yes.
Well, actually, when we raise money for a specific program, 100% of that has to go because it's specifically donated for that reason. And for us not to do that would be a breach of trust to the donors that are giving it.
So let me ask you this also very important question. How do you let everybody know that that's the case? What do you do to make that publicly known?
As to a program, pretty much if we're raising it, we say what it's going to go to. If we're broad and general, like St. Luke's ministry, that has the possibility, of course, of supporting the churches, because we all know churches, at least over 50% go to administration. They have to. But it's the administration and the buildings that support the ministries. But I'm talking about specific, if it's back to school, it goes to back to school. So that's the reason.
Every time that you talk about your back to school program or any program that you're supporting, and you should always say 100% of the money we raised goes into the program and serves the people that we serve, supports them. Because what happens is people nowadays, especially with all the Ponzi schemes and the scam artists out there, are very wary about where their money's going. They'd rather not give it than give it to an organization that they don't trust. And so your transparency must be as clear as possible. And the best way to do that is on the front page of your website, home page of your website, and all of your marketing collateral, everything should have just a little stamp or a button or something that says 82%, 100%, whatever it is going directly into our program. If it's not 80 cents or higher, you're doing something wrong.
This is also what they use to measure the efficiency of a nonprofit. Because I did an internship at Food for the Poor for 6 months. I think they came out third I think that they use, 90%, 80 or 90% of all the funds they receive go to the project.
Right.
So the more money you use, that money you receive toward the project, the most efficient your organization is, and the most trustworthy you're gonna be too.
Sure.
Because, like you said, people tend to use the money for administrative costs and other costs. I mean, people would like their money to make a difference, so
Right.
they would tend to give it where they know that most of their money will go toward the cause they give it to.
It's also within the church, following up on what Carol said, there's programs that we have. And so the funding, if I give to the backpack program or if I give to the food pantry, there's the money for the programs, which actually a lot of funders want to know, they'll support, like I found grants will support a specific program, what we might call ministry area. But then there's also the church, and I think one of the things that we don't do in the church, because we're very accustomed to our budget that puts administration, like the clergy salary, staff salary, and we don't actually break out how much of that time, how much of our overhead costs are actually program related. And so so there are elements within our regular church budget, or percentages, what you might say, that are actually tied to. So even when we look at our church budget and say, well, so much of it is because it's salary for a lot of us. I consider the work that we do, we're not paying salaries, we're not paying light bills.
Right.
We're changing lives through whether it's baptism, whether it's marriages, whether it's funerals, whether it's prayer, whether it's confession, whatever it is. In many ways, that's program support. So I think actually our clergy probably have, sometimes more if they have a lot of building stuff, that they are doing a lot that we might call, program. But that they do work that staff and clergy do work, a percentage of their time goes over to those direct ministries or programs that serve the outside or serve the community.
That's a great clarification. The only thing I would say to add to that is if you are tasked with asking people for money, be prepared when they ask you, because savvy philanthropists will ask you how much of it goes to the program. And if you say, I'm not really sure, or you have an answer like that, they're going to be like, I don't know.
Right. And I don't think churches, we haven't done that. We don't do kind of program-based or what we would call ministry-based.
Right.
Except we only do it in direct, but we don't allocate clergy time or staff time or even overhead to that program.
Remember, the idea is less information is more. Just come up with a number that is the right number and be able to speak it with confidence when asked that question. And then you should be putting that on everything that you do that has public access, because people want to know. And they feel like if you're not putting that out there, there's a reason for it. And it puts them into a state of, I don't know. Right. And you don't want to turn potential donors or sponsors away because of that.